Hey there, Taylor here, and today I wanted to walk you through my soil blocking process. But first, what is soil blocking? So, soil blocking is a method of seed starting that involves compressing a soil medium into small blocks that hold together well enough that seeds can sprout and grow in them. These blocks will hold seedlings until they're transplanted into a pot or directly into the soil, or until they need to be bumped up into larger soil blocks. Soil blocking reduces the dependence on plastic trays, can be more budget friendly over the long term, uses less space, and some would say produces better seedlings due to reduction of transplant shock and air pruning. The idea behind the method was championed by renowned gardener Elliott Coleman, author of The New Organic Grower. I personally like soil blocking because it is easier to wash the flat plastic lunch trays I use to hold the blocks versus all of the individual cells on those cell propagation trays that you can get at your local hardware store. Also, the cell propagation trays end up getting torn up and thrown away. My metal soil blockers will last a lifetime, and the lunch trays will last pretty much indefinitely as well. Now, I will say that you can purchase some thicker black plastic seed trays from Bootstrap Farmer. I have been very impressed by them, and I do like them a lot. I've been able to get multiple seasons out of them. I've been able to get multiple seasons out of the other cell trays as well, but they definitely get torn up, and I just don't like having all that trash laying around. But mostly the problem with the cell trays is the cleaning. It can be super frustrating to clean them. So I start most of my seeds in the small 3/4 inch blocks, about 2 weeks after the suggested time to start seeds normally. So for example, if I'm starting zinnias 6 weeks prior to my last expected frost, if I'm going to be doing soil blocking, I will start them 4 weeks prior to my last expected frost, because they can get really big really quickly in the soil blocks. This is because the seedlings don't have as much space to grow in, and because they usually are ready to either be bumped up or planted out by that time. And I'll explain more about why that is. So the downside to planting in soil blocks is that you have to keep an eye on the moisture level. They can dry out very easily. If you are a person that likes to set it and forget it, you probably don't want to do soil blocking. I have killed lots of seedlings because I didn't pay attention to the moisture level. Soil blocks are also not ideal for larger seeds or seeds that need to be buried. An example of this would be sweet peas. They're just not designed for the blocks. Once my seedlings have outgrown their 3/4 inch block, but they aren't ready to go outside for whatever reason, I'll either bump them up into a 2-inch soil block using black plastic inserts that snap into my 2-inch soil blocker, or I will transplant them into pots. What's nice about bumping up into the bigger blocks is you can just pick up the little cube and set it down in a perfectly sized space in the 2-inch block. No need to press down. Just plop it in and the plant will do the rest. There are several different soil blocking recipes, but here are some of the basic ingredients you're going to need to get started. Either peat or coconut coir, perlite or coarse sand, sifted compost, green sand, blood meal, phosphate, and lime. So the main idea behind the soil blocking recipe is you need to have a way for the blocks to stick together. So ingredients like compost, even peat and coconut coir will help with that. Some growers like to use a peat-based germination mix to form their blocks only, so they don't mix in anything else. They just get a bag of the germination mix and wet it thoroughly. That works. I've done that and it's totally fine. I do feel like the seedlings kind of lag a little bit, whether that's because of the nutrition or the blocks just don't form as well. And then others will say that adding compost is absolutely key to creating the perfect sticky block. This year, I've been experimenting with Vermont Compost Company's Fort V compost base mix. So far, so good. I have some flower farmer friends that soil block with this mix. I like that it is compost based because the blocks hold together and because it may give the plant some starter nutrition. I really feel like seedlings like that. I used to be really afraid of any sort of fertilizer or any sort of non-sterile solution like compost inside my germination mix, but I've honestly found that the seedlings really enjoy that little boost of starter nutrition, and in the wild or outside, they don't grow in completely sterile conditions. We're finding out more and more that there is a relationship between microorganisms and seeds, and so I feel comfortable having a compost-based mix for my soil blocking. The added organic matter from the compost helps the blocks absorb water too. So if you're looking for a recipe from Elliott Coleman himself, Then you can follow the recipe from his book. The New Organic Grower basically makes 2 bushels of soil blocking mix, and he has the recipe stating 3 buckets of peat, 2 buckets of compost, 2 buckets of coarse sand or perlite, 3 cups of a base fertilizer. This is usually a combination of blood meal, green sand, and colloidal phosphate, and half a cup of lime. Also, the Cornell College of Agriculture has another soil blocking recipe, and it's pretty simple. 1 part coconut coir, 1 part peat moss. So that's basically a germination mix. There are some online retailers that are starting to sell soil blocking mix if you're afraid to mix your own, but you really should not be afraid to mix your own. I will add that sifting your mix will help create a finer medium, especially if you're going to be mixing it. So with the Fort V mix, I've found rocks and larger debris in it, which makes sense if it's compost based, but sifting will help alleviate that issue. I didn't sift though, and my blocks were just fine. I just kind of scooted the rocks and the debris off to the side once I was making the soil blocks. So when you're ready to start soil blocking, what you're going to need to do is to wet the soil down so that it's fairly moist. You should be able to squeeze it and the mix itself will kind of stick together. You don't want so much moisture that it falls apart though. And once you have it fairly moist, then you're going to pack it into your blocker. Try to get it down in there very firmly if you can. This can take a little bit of time and I find it's a little bit tedious, but do the best you can, pack it in, and then push it down firmly on the bottom of the tray and then squeeze the little trigger and all your blocks will come out and they're ready to go. You just keep doing that, fill up your tray, and then you'll be ready to seed the tray. Most of the seeds will just be placed on top. Sometimes I'll try to press them down firmly to help if they seem like they need to be pushed down a little bit more. Usually those are the bigger seeds, but I found that honestly it's all pretty much fine. If I feel like there's a little bit of a layer that I need to add on top, I'll just kind of sprinkle it on there. I usually sprinkle a little bit of vermiculite on there too, and then give it a good mist, and then cover with a plastic wrap or humidity dome, and I'll keep the plastic wrap on until about 80% of the seedlings have germinated, and then after that you really have to keep an eye on the moisture. I water with a small watering can and just pour the water slowly in off to the side, and the water will just fill up the tray and slowly soak up into the blocks. And then your seeds will be ready to go when you have a couple sets of true leaves and they look large enough. You want to make sure that you kind of brush them with your hand often to simulate wind and to help thicken up those stems. And then you just kind of gently tease them apart when you're ready to plant and either put them in a pot or bump them up into other soil blocks or plant them outside. Make sure that you harden off your seedlings before you plant them outside though. Definitely keep an eye on them if you put a tray of soil blocks outside, especially in the sun and the wind. It'll dry out really quickly. So just keep an eye on them and they'll be totally fine. So I hope you like this video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. You can visit our blog. If you ever have any questions, we usually put links to different growing resources down in the description of our videos. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. We'd love it if you'd subscribe to our channel if you like to learn about all things gardening, growing, and homesteading. Thanks for watching, guys. Happy soil blocking.